Hi, I'm Dawson with Dawson Builders. Today we're going to talk about sump pump backup systems. You have a sump pump, a primary pump in your pit, and they tend to burn out, and there's no warning signs when they're going to burn out. They just burn out their motors. They'll last for a year, they might last for 10 years. It's important to have a backup system. So let's talk about the backup system and then how to test your backup system if you have one. Here's a typical setup for a backup system. You have check valves. And what check valves do is they keep the water, once it pumps by the pump out of the pit, it's going to go to the exterior of the house. The check valve keeps the water on this side. Once it passes it, the valve closes and the water doesn't return down into the pit. You have two check valves. You have one for your standard pump or your primary pump, and then you have one for your backup pump. This is the backup pump here, and then this is your backup pump setup. Typical backup pumps have a battery, and then they have the system that controls the pump. And with every system, there's a manual that comes, and there are lights on the backup pump that show you whether it's working properly or not. In this case, they're all green, so that's good. If you ever come down to your pump and it's got red lights or it's beeping, the best thing to do is get your manual, and each of these items on here will tell you different things on the manual, like it says battery problem or power failure or pump failure, and then your manual will tell you how to reset it. Now, one of the common things that people don't do on their batteries is inside the batteries, they're just like car batteries, and there's cells inside these batteries. So just by screwing one of these off, inside there's water. Now you have to put distilled water in. You can't just put regular water in. You have to use distilled water. Good to get the water from either your dehumidifier has distilled water that you can pour in there, or go to the store and buy distilled water and fill it up to where you can see the water, because if there's no water, the battery fails. So it's important every year to go down and test your water levels inside your battery. That's probably the most common thing why a pump failure will happen on the backup system. It's important to have your backup system in play. It only works when your primary pump fails. So every pit has a cover on it, or the majority of them do, and the covers come off in a variety of different ways. This one has a slit, so you just bend it and it comes off between the two pipes. Now down in your pit you have certain things. This thing right here is where the water's coming in from around your house. And this is your primary pump right here, and the one that's deeper down there on that side is your backup. Now what you have on your primary pump is you have your float right here, so when the water gets to a certain level, it pushes the float up, and the float causes the motor to go. If this pump would fail, the water's going to pass that float, the float's never going to trigger, and right here you have the float for the backup. So that's higher, now the backup's running. So when the backup runs, whenever the backup runs, you get an alarm. And if you hear that alarm, there's probably a reason why you heard that alarm. Because the alarm was triggered because the backup pump ran. And the systems are designed so that you will hear that and come down and check it, because that means your primary pump failed. Okay, so we triggered the backup pump and we saw what happened in the pit, and now you can hear the beeping going on. If you hear that beeping, it's important that you check your regular pump to make sure it's working, because if it got to the backup pump, it means it got to the backup pump float. And the float for the backup pump set higher, so that means the float did not work for the regular pump. So if you're hearing this beeping, it's a good sign that your regular pump is dead, and now it's time to call a plumber and go get it replaced. So for the meantime, if it does go off and you check your primary pump and it's working, there could have been just something that caused it to happen. So you can reset this. So you hear the beeping going on, and the red light's on right now, and it says pump was activated. And so now you want to turn off that red light. And there's all different ways to do it on the different pump systems, to read your manual, but a lot of times you can just push this button here. It'll eject it again, and then it will reset it. And so the red light went off, the pump ran, everything's green again, so you're good to go. But make sure you check your primary pump, because that probably failed